Do want to get to some breaking news that we are following right now out of the Middle East. Take a look. Israel says it has eliminated the head of the Hamas terror group in Jenin. That's over in the West Bank, where Israel did begin its counterterrorism operation earlier in the week. The Israel Defense Forces saying this video shows the assassination of Wassem Hazem, who was inside that vehicle on your screen. The Israeli military says he was involved in carrying out and directing shooting and bombing attacks, as well as other terrorist activities in several parts of the West Bank. Do want to talk about that and all of the developments here, so let's bring in John Strawson, a friend of the show. He's an emeritus professor in the Department of Law, Justice and Policing at the University of East London. John, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here.
Good morning, Josh.
Good morning. Well, first off, I do want to talk about this assassination of the head of Hamas over in Jenin. How significant is that for Israel?
Well, in Jenin, there's been a whole group of people coordinated by Hazem, actually, called the Lion's Den, which brings together a series of militant groups, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and actually some of the Fatah militants in Al-Aqsa brigades. And this Lion's Den has been definitely causing a huge problem, not only for the Israelis, but actually also for the Palestinian Authority led by Mahmoud Abbas. And what we've actually seen over the last couple of days has been the elimination of leaders of Islamic Jihad. Yesterday, it was Mohammed Jabbar, who was assassinated, and today, the leader of Hamas in the West Bank. And I think what that does is certainly underline the seriousness of what has been taking place as a sort of subset of October the 7th and the Gaza war in the West Bank, with the upswing of terrorist attacks. And I think that this shows the resolve that the Israelis have. If you remember, last week in Lebanon, they eliminated Khalil Makdar, who was accused by the Israelis of working with the Iranian Revolutionary Guards in funding weapons and explosives which were being smuggled from Lebanon through Syria and Jordan into the West Bank. So I think that this operation which has been taking place very much addresses the concerns which the Israelis, but also, as a matter of fact, the Palestinian Authority has about what's been taking place in Jenin.
And kind of on that same topic here, we did hear from Israel's, I believe, foreign minister there, that he actually wants a security fence put up at the Jordan, really the Israel border there. So what would be the significance of that? Is that really a possibility?
Well, I think what that highlights is the much more porous borders between Israel and Jordan than we often think exists. If you cross over, for instance, the Allenby Bridge, which connects Israel and the West Bank, or the West Bank and Jordan, I should say, which is controlled by the Israelis, you'd imagine that the security is absolutely tight. But if you go further afield, there's quite a long, through the Jordan Valley, quite a long border, all sorts of possibilities do take place. And of course, there have been regular incursions. And what I think is quite clear from what's been taking place in Gaza is that the idea that there would not just be overland porous borders, but also underland through tunnels is something which the Israelis obviously are extremely concerned about. So I think we're going to see a toughening of the border between the West Bank and Jordan, and also between Israel and its neighbors.
We've heard from Israel that so far they've been able to eliminate about 80% of those terror tunnels that are located over in the area of the Philadelphia corridor. So is it possible for Israel to actually eliminate all of those tunnels?
Well, here, of course, we've discussed this before over the last few weeks, and of course, we never know what the 80% is of. what we can say is that the Israelis clearly have increased their destruction of tunnels over the past few weeks, particularly in the border area between Gaza and Egypt, the so-called Philadelphia corridor. And that obviously is very important. This has been, of course, this is the key sticking point of the deal between Israel and Hamas about a ceasefire and indeed an end of conflict and the return of the hostages, with Israel insisting, and last night its Security Cabinet voting in favor of a permanent Israeli presence along this corridor, along the border, essentially between Gaza and Egypt. This is something which Hamas objects to, and actually something which the Egyptians also object to. The big problem, of course, is that this corridor and this border is also subject to the 1979 Camp David Accords. This is when Israel and Egypt had a peace deal. And part of that peace deal was that the Sinai Desert would be largely demilitarized. And that is a problem as far as the activities of Islamist groups, Hamas, and the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood is concerned, and other groups, because the Sinai has become an area of great instability as far as Egypt is concerned. And I think that the Israelis and Egyptians need to sit down and discuss that question, because in 1979, the threat to Israel was from Egypt. Today, the threat to Israel obviously is from Hamas and its supporters, who have been running rings around all security forces, Egyptian and Israeli, in the Sinai for the last few years.
I want to pop this up right here because this was actually posted by the Israeli Defense Forces, and it says, busted. The IDF just exposed Hamas for manipulating public opinion surveys by the Palestinian Polling Institute, that's the PSR, to fake support for its leaders, especially after the October 7th massacre. They said that the documents were actually found during operations in Gaza. How significant is that, and why fake these numbers if that is true?
Well, of course, we'd have to look at the actual documents, and we've only got some excerpts which the IDF have produced. I personally am quite, I think it's probably true. I think Hamas have handled the propaganda war extremely well since October the 7th. And one of the big part of that propaganda war is saying that there is huge support amongst Palestinians for the massacre which took place on October the 7th, and for the continuation of the war in Gaza. And I think what these figures probably show is that there is much less support for that than Hamas claims. So I think part of this has also been to try to persuade supporters of Hamas, sometimes, or not supporters of humanitarian people in the United States and Europe, who have, for instance, been concerned with seeing terrible sights of humanitarian suffering and have been, on demonstrations in tent cities. And of course, if that can be backed up by saying that the actions which Hamas have taken, which is often portrayed erroneously as a liberation movement rather than a terrorist organization, if that's backed up by Palestinian support, that obviously gives them a shot in the arm for their activities. So I think it is significant. Of course, Halil Shakaki, who is the director of a very well-established and well-respected polling agency in the West Bank, who actually commissioned this, has not yet commented. So we have to wait to see what he will say.
I want to pop this video up for you right here. It's actually coming in from our friends over at Fox News, captured there over in Israel, as we do know that several relatives of the hostages there actually breached a perimeter fence and attempted to run toward their loved ones who are being held in Gaza, but they stopped, as you see there, after security forces told them to return to safety. Does that show kind of how desperate these families are to make sure to get their loved ones back? And would they have gone all the way into Gaza?
Well, the families are desperate. And I have to say, having met the families myself over the last few months, the families have been desperate from day one. And obviously that desperation has increased as the nearly 11 months of the captivity of their loved ones has continued. And with daily reports of the deaths of hostages, the recoveries of bodies rather than the living by the IDF really underlines the fact that this is a really serious question, and it must be absolute torture for these people. And I think that there was a great deal of frustration last night when the Security Cabinet voted in favor of keeping Israeli troops on the Philadelphia corridor, because many of the hostage families thought that that was a way of scuppering the deal, which would mean that their loved ones would not be coming home soon.
Last question for you here. Israel's defense minister, Yoav Gallant, says that he wants to expand the goals of the war, which would include the safe return of residents over to northern Israel following the attacks that continue to happen by Hezbollah. Is it realistic to think that that could actually happen anytime soon? Is that a real possibility that folks could return to their homes in the north?
Well, of course, the trouble is it's a question of whether you think this is a question of militarily dealing with Hezbollah or having a ceasefire agreement in Gaza. To some extent, they all link together. If there's a ceasefire in Gaza, then Hezbollah have made it clear that they will stop their action in the north. Now, that means that the kind of talks when taking place, quite intensive talks over the last 2 or 3 weeks in Doha, then in Cairo, then back to Doha, are actually very crucial for the north. Gallant has been one of those in the Israeli political establishment and military establishment who has been arguing from October the 8th, really, that there should be a decisive military action against Hezbollah in Lebanon. And I think that he is obviously still arguing for that position. And I think that's quite understandable because we have tens of thousands of Israelis who are displaced in the north. The north of the country, the very far north of Israel, is not working properly. There are ghost towns, and there is a great deal of frustration. But I think at the end of the day, quite frankly, it's not going to be a military solution in the north. It's going to be a political solution over the question of the Gaza war.
John Strawson, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and break down a variety of different topics. So many developments, obviously, happening there in the Middle East, so we appreciate it. Anything you want to add about really anything going on there in the Middle East before I let you go?
Well, one thing I would like to say is I think one of the ways in which the media have been covering these talks over Gaza has been rather difficult, because I think what we have to bear in mind is that there's been no breakdown in these talks. The talks are continuing at different levels all the time. And I think we have to say that the diplomacy, which has been shown by the United States, by the Europeans, and by Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and the Gulf states, including, of course, the Qataris, that actually this is still in place. There are still possibilities. And despite the fact that we have no breakthrough, the fact that we are still involved with contacts illustrates that diplomacy in the end can solve this crisis.
And it is important to note those talks are still ongoing at this point, so really anything could happen. John, thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to be here with us. We appreciate it.
Nice to be with you again, Josh.